And I ended that post for Equal Pay Day on equality is not your market worth, right? You can be equalized. So let's say a company says, oh my gosh, a woman is paid below the set range for this job. How did that happen? Some type of administrative error, or typically what happens is she's been here the longest and everyone else on the team that happened to be not the woman was a new hire brought in at the market rate.
Right. Yeah, I see that.
Right. And so it wasn't intentional.
Yeah.
Right. This is like the gray area. This is how a company's not trying to be evil, but it's also not paying attention. And that this is how the gap occurs. And this is why it's incumbent, unfortunately, but also fortunately because you're empowered to do it. But this is why it's incumbent on you as women to negotiate and advocate for yourselves frequently.
Welcome to the Numbers of Purpose podcast. Today's guest is the proof that mastering negotiation isn't just about numbers. It's about identity, worth, and knowing when to take up space. Aaron Thweatt is an executive coach who helps women advocate for themselves when their self-worth is on the line. His career path is anything but ordinary. He's held roles in financial services, oil and gas, and the arts before spending over a decade in HR and compensation at giants like SpaceX, Activision Blizzard, and DoorDash. Now, through Respark Coaching, Aaron works with women on salary negotiation, executive presence, and leading high-stakes conversations with clarity and confidence. He spoke at South by Southwest, UT Austin, Women in Cybersecurity, and more, and even co-authored a book with former FBI hostage negotiator Chris Voss. In this episode, we explore what it really takes to stand your ground in rooms that weren't built for you, and how advocating for yourself can change the trajectory of your life, not just your paycheck. Let's dive in. Hi, and welcome to the Numbers of Purpose podcast. Super pumped to have you here.
Thank you.
You're probably the first man on this podcast.
Oh,
look at that. Yeah, I know. Very, very interesting. Tell me your story. We've met probably a couple of weeks ago, and I was very impressed with what you do, and I feel like it's very purposeful and very meaningful, especially, well, you tell me what you do. Yeah, tell us.
Sure. So I'm an executive coach for women, and I had a long career, corporate America, tech, 5 different careers to be specific, and five. Wow. Distinctly different ones, not companies, but careers. And I made a lot of decisions alone, and I navigated a lot without context, without mentorship or guidance. And so that's what got me interested in just helping people in general. Once I got to a certain place in my career and also learned certain things, specifically things that like salary negotiation, like why people are successful and who moves forward in a company, who doesn't, those nuances, because I spent 11 years in compensation, the function of HR that determines what to pay people.
Wow, fascinating.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I was the one who made the decision, yes or no. When there was requests for raises, recruiting asked, can we give this candidate more because they have another offer? All those decisions, and throughout an employee's entire life cycle, I helped made from the compensation side. And so just seeing how the salary negotiation game works, how all those things and all the intricacies that we don't get taught was really fascinating to me. So that started me on my coaching journey in general. And I decided to focus on women, because ultimately women have done amazing things, created a lot of value, a lot of success, but I haven't seen them drop the cast of that Roman arch of self-advocacy. And that's like the one missing piece. And also I'm the son of a single mom, and I've seen a woman in her power and not in her power, and the cascading effects of both. And ultimately I've seen my mom make a lot of really great decisions, but there was times where I think our family, if she would have felt more agency, it could have been a different outcome for us. And it's, in high school, things changed, it got better. But the point is like a lot of my friends, a lot of colleagues, a lot of coworkers all throughout my career, really top performers, but they weren't getting paid. They weren't getting recognized what they're worth. And part of it was because they didn't feel the agency to even ask. And so that's where I realized that I had a skill set that I can help. And so I decided to focus on women for those reasons, not because I'm a man who decided to tell women what to do.
Yeah.
But because I feel I have a genuine skill set and experience that is going to be impactful to them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Tell me what happened when you decided to, hey, I want to become a coach. Like what was your thought process at that time?
It all started really with me getting coaches for myself.
Uh-huh.
Like multiple years of therapy. I'm super well adjusted now. And so the therapy was great, but it's for those who have done it, it's primarily backward looking right into the past. And so I was ready to turn around and look forward. So then that's when I got a coach and then another coach. And over time, I was like, this is helping and I enjoy it. And also, I think I would be good at this, and that coincided with how my career had shifted into career number 4, which was the compensation side to try what to pay everyone, multiple 4 different tech companies. And I was like, what if I took this skill set and became a coach for salary negotiation? And then it expanded to career coaching. And then it expanded to whole person life coaching. And it wasn't just the experience I wanted to, to rely on to be a coach. I knew that there's other training that I needed. So I got 2 coaching certifications to augment my real world experience.
That's interesting. Tell us a little bit about how did you make those decisions when it comes to like who you want to compensate more, or like what it requires. So like what are the factors for you to say, yeah, I want to give to this person maybe higher salary or like a bonus or something like that.
Yeah. So really it's about triangulation. So we'll talk there's actually 2 different lenses necessary. One is how much to pay somebody from a hiring perspective, then how much to pay somebody when they're an employee who's staying. And like when my coaching, I coach both angles with people, but there's a lot of overlap, but slightly different things. So I'll tell you from like the other side, the company's side, as hiring somebody as a candidate, there's triangulation between experience, market value, and then peers, internal peers. So the job says you must have, it's senior analyst of such and such function. You must have 7 to 10 years experience. That's what the job description says. You as a candidate, you have 8 years experience, 8 or 9. So those are, quantitative terms, but they're ultimately subjective. Years of experience is ultimately kind of subjective, especially when you meet the range of the threshold. There's a lot of people who have 10 years of experience working, but only 3 years experience learning, right? They just have done the same thing over and over and over. And the inverse is also true. Like I felt for me, at least when I first got to SpaceX, each year there was worth 3 somewhere else because of the pace and the variety and the intensity and the autonomy that was not just foisted upon us, but was required just inherently because we ran really lean teams. The whole company was like that. And a lot of tech companies are like that. So the point is like being able for you as an employee, I'm like kind of switching tenses here at real time to be able to articulate your experience. And I just rely on where you can see that I have 7, 8, 9 years experience. It's like, well, what is the quality of your experience? So that's where I would look to the recruiter who had, obviously, the recruiter and the hiring manager who had the most time with the candidate, the interviews, to if things really came down to like, we think we should pay them this and they want more, really understanding the differences. So, but to really answer your question, how companies make pay decisions is to have market data informed, hopefully, on structure they developed internally. So you are a analyst 1, analyst 2, senior analyst, and then something higher if you jump over to the management track, right? If companies don't have those levels and pay ranges associated with each of those levels, that's a very opaque environment. And opaque environments will cut against you disproportionately if you say nothing, but could swing in your favor big time if you do, right? So if you go and work at like an Apple, General Electric, something like that, like really big companies, they probably have established levels in pay ranges. Smaller startups probably don't, because typically if you're a company that's looking to grow, trying to find product market fit and survive, the administrative back of the house doesn't scale with the business. And so that's why when I showed up at some of these tech companies I worked at, they hadn't really fully built out comprehensively their HR infrastructure, their levels, their ranges. as much as you think they would,
Mm-hmm.
because there's like thousands of people that work there. So
Yeah.
that's where there's an invitation for you to, this is why negotiation is important, because conversation starts as a science and ends as an art.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I saw your recent post on LinkedIn. You posted about that an average woman makes something 0.82 cents. Was that post?
Oh, an equal pay day.
Equal pay day. Okay. Can you like elaborate on that?
Sure. And there's a lot of talk about that. What would you like to hear most?
I guess what is it for us, for women and for men to understand, I guess, in that point, and like from the coaching perspective, like why did you post that? Like what is the value in that post? I guess.
Sure. So the value in the post was ultimately an image that I shared from the Women's History Museum, which said, women earn 82 cents on the dollar as men in corporate America and, in business. And I believe there's kind of three categories of why this happens. Number one is, I actually believe this is probably the minority category. I don't have data to back it up, so I don't really talk about it much. But it is worth mentioning that there is some sort of, patriarchal company person out there who is saying, let's pay them less because they're women. I'm sure that exists. Yeah. But I think the biggest things are affecting women's careers by the time spent out of their career, do raising a family, job change, things like that. And then third biggest category is not negotiating and not advocating for themselves. And so it's going to sound like, well, you're putting that onus on women. And I'm like, kind of. And as I coach for women, that's one of the things I help with. And that's why I want to help, because the onus is on all of us to advocate for ourselves. And the analogy I used in the post was this systemic issue of getting the gap closed is like a car that's stuck in the mud. Mm. It's going to take other cars pulling it out. And that means companies really paying attention. So like when I was at compensation, we did a yearly analysis. And anytime there's any sort of like one-off request that was like crazy, we did analysis on like who else is being eclipsed if we were to do this. And does that make sense? Is it defensible? And that's where we get into talking recruiters and managers and like, if we do this, are you willing to blow up your team if everyone else finds out? Can you defend that this person's worth generally more than everyone else objectively? And then the next layer is like, are we doing something that is causing, optics that is going to make it seem like women are being underpaid and all that? And like, again, is it justifiable because this man is more experienced, more qualified, right? If that makes sense, if that's all defensible, then yes. But if not, then it's like, we can't just be making, spontaneous decisions without considering the second order consequences. And I think companies with tons of employees, they move fast and they don't consider that. And that's how I think, at least unintentionally, women and maybe minorities sometimes get left behind. And even straight white males too, right? Self-advocacy is key in all this. So that's one aspect. Pulling the car out, companies really paying attention, devoting dollars to reconciling gaps that do exist when they find them. Second part is the passengers of the cars getting out and pushing. And that's women negotiating for themselves as much as they can. So it means not always taking the first offer, or at least trying to negotiate. And I teach that, how to negotiate, how to handle a conversation with a recruiter or your manager. And then asking for not just the raise, but asking for the promotion, asking for the career advancement rather than waiting for it to be bestowed upon you. Those two efforts coming together is probably the best thing that we could do to reconcile the gap that's occurring.
So do you think from like, and you obviously in the industry, I'm curious, do you see it's changing from the company's perspective? Like, are they actually willing to like look into the like data or like say, yes, we underpaying women and we want to help there, or they really don't care? Because I guess to my understanding, it's like if you are big corporation and you're making tons of money, you really don't care. Like as long as it's working. What do you see there? Like, do you see any changes happening?
I would say large companies, at least outwardly, are saying they care, whether it's a function of they generally do and or they're trying to limit liability. So I think the general trend is towards companies caring and looking at it. The caveat is, do they look at it as frequently as necessary?
Yeah.
Do they look at it as frequently as much as you and your career would like? And I ended that post for Equal Pay Day on equality is not your market worth, right? You can be equalized. So let's say a company says, oh my gosh, a woman is paid below the set range for this job. How did that happen? Some type of administrative error, or typically what happens is she's been here the longest, and everyone else on the team that happened to be not the woman was a new hire brought in at the market rate.
Right. Yeah, I see that.
Right. And so it wasn't intentional.
Yeah.
Right. This is like the gray area. This is how a company's not trying to be evil, but it's also not paying attention. And that this is how the gap occurs. And this is why it's incumbent, unfortunately, but also fortunately because you're empowered to do it. But this is why it's incumbent on you as women to negotiate and advocate for yourselves frequently.
Okay. So in that case, it's your turn to kind of like step in and negotiate for yourself.
Well, it's always your turn.
Okay. Yeah.
It's just about, I think, what I've experienced is salary negotiation only occurs in most people's minds when they switch jobs. Usually.
Makes sense.
Or maybe they ask after being at a company for X number of years. So let's say, whether it's because you switch jobs 7 times in your career, it takes 1 minute to actually ask. That's 7 minutes to determine your entire life's earnings. So it's a minute you don't get trained for. It's a minute that it is kind of 0 to 1,000 on pressure, especially if you're not accustomed to advocating for yourself. Or even if you do. I've met a ton of women that are like badass and like have no problem speaking the truth, asking for what they need. But sometimes there's a tactical order. Even women who are very confident and adept at saying what they want, understanding like the right order, how to layer out the ask and the timing, and how to justify it.
Interesting. So the entire system behind it.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, we'll get into it. My next question would be, what do you see as a common like mindset block, I guess, for like when a client comes to you? Like, what do you see the common thing that women, I guess, share that making it maybe difficult for them to negotiate the raise or anything like that? Yeah.
Yeah. So the most common mindset block is, we talk about in not just salary negotiation, but just putting yourself out there to be seen, be recognized, and advanced for it, is they want to be seen as coming off as greedy, rocking the boat, or be seen as too much.
Oh, love it.
And I'm definitely aware of the double standard that occurs when a man says something in a boardroom or meeting. It's like, oh, Tom is assertive.
Yeah, Eric.
But a woman says it like, ooh, listen, Jay, maybe you shouldn't. It's that part's not fair.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think that has caused women to like pump the brakes on like, well, if I say something, then this external result is going to happen about my internal branding, my perception, with the net result being they don't say anything. And they say, I'll just work really hard and hopefully the company will recognize it.
That's it. Yeah.
And that is the most dangerous thing you can do, because that equates to blind loyalty.
And they probably would get upset after like they've been working so hard so many years and nothing happened. Nobody saw it. And like, she's like, well, I'm putting my best years into your company and like you don't even see that I'm like working hard.
Yeah.
Happen a lot?
Happens a lot. And here's the other interesting thing to think about. Your career grows linearly. Your leverage grows exponentially.
Yeah.
So let's say you graduate college and you try to negotiate your first job, which you definitely should try. Absolutely. Because you build that muscle, right? Remember, that negotiation opportunity really happens every 2 to 5 years.
Yes.
And so getting that shot on goal.
How do you negotiate after college?
It's almost the same. It's just you have less stuff to bring forward based on your real work experience. So it's more about how the future projection and like what do we do?
Would it be something that you maybe, I guess, promote more of your like skill set, that you're like passionate, driven, willing to work hard or something like that?
Yes, maybe this is a good time for me to start to incorporate kind of the second layer to all of this, which is, so I say negotiation opportunities typically are 2 to 5 years in distance. but what do you do every day to increase your leverage?
Love it.
And that is executive presence. So executive presence is the most under-discussed, but most highly recognized and highly prized trait in any person that works at a company. And executive presence is kind of je ne sais quoi. It's like, why is he or she or anybody, they're good at their job, but so-and-so's better, or I'm definitely better technically, that they get promoted. Or I've been told I'm a high performer, but I don't get promoted as quickly as they do. And that's the key thing. That's the first. So I have 6 core tenets that comprise executive presence that define what it is and how to do it. The first one is being a high performer. And that's implying
Define high performer so people understand.
High performer is like, you know how to do your job very well. You get high marks in the company, things like that. And it's actually, maybe better said, be competent in your role. Because there's a lot of people who are not necessarily high performers. They're not bad. They're competent, but they're not high performers. But for some reason, they get promoted. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And like, would it be also that can you make mistakes there?
There is political capital, emotional cartilage that you burn through when you do that. So it just depends how much you have, right? So I would say the fear of making a mistake is actually the biggest thing that holds most people back. And that's why maybe they don't speak up in meetings. They want to get, I have a client right now, and she's focused on getting all the information first before she communicates her plan. And she's a director level. And right now, her career is being impeded because management doesn't view her as having a strategic vision.
I see.
And it's because she has, I think she's going to really break through this week. But the work we've been doing is on taking a shot, which is another pillar of executive presence.
So for her, it's a new skill.
It's a new skill to lean forward a bit more and say something for the future about the vision, the plan, without all the information, but knowing that she can adapt. And executives have more of an expectation of things adapting, changing, and they're more open to that than a vacuum of vision, a vacuum of a plan, because any vacuum will get filled, and whoever fills that vacuum with their narrative usually wins.
Okay. What are the rest of the 6 aspects that you have?
Sure. So the core tenet, think of executive presence like a skyscraper. So the foundation goes deep under the ground, and that's competence in your role. It's implied. And that's why it's below the ground. You can't see it, but you expect it to be there. You got to be at least decent at your job.
Question, fake it until you make it. Would it be, I guess, because, you can be not competent, but they're like, you know what, I'm going to figure that out.
I think both could be true. You could be competent and still feel like the fake it till you make it aspect, as in hey, there's some basic aspects of my role. I think this is one of the biggest things with women is, they say, I forget the exact numbers, but it's, on a job posting, if a guy is 40% qualified, he'll apply, but a woman needs to be 90% qualified to feel like she could apply.
Okay. So psychological barrier there.
A self-imposed psychological barrier. And so it's the ability to the elements of that job I know I can do. Maybe I haven't done it at that level or at that size or scale or in that industry, but the lowest common denominator of that role I've done.
Yeah.
And be able to think like that.
I wonder if it's a cultural thing, because I'm from Belarus, and I honestly, when moved to New York, I didn't have any experience with bartending or, when you just from fresh over college, and you're just getting your first job, especially in this different country. I was trying to do bartending, then waitress, hostess. And when they're looking at my resume, they're like, well, you don't have experience. And then my friend's like, you should lie in your resume. That's what we do here. I'm like, huh. So I posted I worked in restaurants, and when I got hired, I had no idea of what I do, where should I go, what should I press, and I'm did you work with this? I'm like, yeah, and there's a bunch of buttons, and like it says like, you know, like different types of cocktails for the bartender, like the kitchen. And I'm like, you know what? I'll figure that out. I don't know. I don't know how. It might be also the age, you know, like I feel like when you're younger, you're kind of like, I guess, less afraid of things, and like you just like, you know what, whatever happens, happens. But I also think that it might be cultural too. What do you feel?
Maybe. I mean, listen, Eastern European, I've met people like, I would, you know, like I'm American. I spend most of my time in America. So other people of other cultures I've met are here in America, which means there are a certain cut that allows the rest usually. Sure. From the perspective of they had the ambition and the desire and made it happen to get out of said country to get to America. That's no easy feat. So there's always like, I can see the gleam in your eye. There's a little different of a glint, right? And that's ambition.
Yeah.
So that's like kind of a differentiator number one.
Okay.
But I want to tap on what you said, though. You said, fake it till you make it, line your resume, right? And look, somebody like what you did, I don't blame you at all for. What I coach, though, is to be, you know, honest and transparent as, you know, as an advantageous way, but not to fake, you know, experience. We've seen CEOs get taken down because they lied on their resume about something years ago. Yeah, it was like 14 years ago, 15 years ago, the CEO of Yahoo had his job for like 8 months, and then the board realized he had lied on his resume, and he got
Then is it like an investigation or?
I don't know why, but I read it in the news. You know, why would they suddenly be prompted to look again after already?
Yeah, exactly. Like what?
Seems weird. And there's been a few other examples, but the point is like, the way I coach and the way I believe in my clients is you don't need to lie to get ahead. And it's more about managing the conversation. It's about accessing your self-belief, recognizing what you have, and then managing the conversation for the future. And that's how you can convey via your executive presence the right aspects to move forward. Because executive presence, what does it really do? It imbues trust.
Yeah.
And so the basic tenet is competence in your role. The second tenet is rounding up, taking a shot. Right? So that's like the next level of the skyscraper. And the way you build your career up is by embodying all 6 pillars. So competence is the foundation, taking a shot, rounding up. Like when I was early in my compensation analyst career, I do a lot of Excel analysis, put everything together, and then hand it over. And then I realized there's more. I keep performing at the same level. If I want to get to the next level, I need to start acting like the next level. What does that do? It's more strategic. So it's like, put all the numbers together and say, by the way, manager, here's what I think we should do. What do you think?
Okay.
Because 2 things are going to occur. One, they'll say, oh, interesting, good idea. And then they're going to at least see you as trying to participate and be more than just a drone worker. But if you're wrong in your proposal, you'll get corrected and calibrated sooner. And then that's how people who, you know, come from, I was like Goldman Sachs for 2 years, and I went to this hedge fund, you know, like we would hire people at SpaceX who they would come from these investment banking backgrounds in the finance department. And they would have, you know, single digit number of years experience and then be able to get into the SpaceX finance department. That, you know, that was like a really big deal. But it's because obviously I didn't interview them, but I'm sure they interviewed very well. And I could see their resumes when I did their offers. They had a phenomenal experience. That same number of years could have been done somewhere else that wasn't as intense, as seen enough deal flow or whatever the case may be. So it's about giving yourself the best opportunities to learn and then calibrate so you can advance as soon as possible. And you can only do that by taking a shot.
So it's almost sounds like empty years in your resume, right? Like you could have 1 year filled up with like, I guess, different types of skill sets that you build during that like 1 year, or like 7 years of nothing, pretty much.
That's the risk. And that's what, you know, when I coach, making sure that someone is aware is career management, basically. And so it's not just advocating for yourself to get paid more. It's advocating for yourself to get exposure to the right things and the right projects. You know, I met someone recently at a housewarming party, and she's like, yeah, I launched Uber in LA, and then I went to Mexico City, and they always other cities. In the early days. that right there is like intense in the furnace experience.
Yeah.
Right. She could do anything now.
Yeah.
She has a startup and of course she's, successful. But like, there's someone that I worked with in HR. He was an intern in HR at SpaceX. And it was intense for everyone, but especially for him. Like this was an internship and he was basically like acting as a full person, a full employee from his scope perspective. And, now he's, senior director of HR very early in his career. And that intensity very quickly, there's also a risk it burns you out. Let's be clear.
Yeah.
There's always risks and downsides to these things. But if you want to advance and move forward, getting these types of really good experiences is important. And it's incumbent on you to ask for that.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So we covered 2. Now, what are the rest for?
Yeah. So number 3 is be concise.
Mm-hmm.
So when people are really good at their job, they know technically the right answer. They are true verbose.
Mm-hmm.
And people tune out. And the ability to sum things up and be like concise and direct is really important skill set in communication, which leads into the next one, which is don't catastrophize.
Mm-hmm. Love it.
So a lot of times when problems happen in business, there's problems from time to time. The people I've noticed who have catastrophized, and again, I have very distinct visceral experiences. Everyone's crammed into an office or a conference room trying to figure something out. And like, I know this person has probably less technical or regulatory experience or whatever the answer is, but they're kind of freaking out. And it's not doing their personal brand any good. And it's not helping out conversation either. So obviously this is not to be about, overly optimistic, too pie in the sky. But remember, the objective of executive presence is to imbue trust.
Yes.
And so if you are able to manage your emotions in a crisis or a challenge situation,
yep,
you're going to really imbue trust.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's everywhere. It's in your life too.
Oh yeah.
No, like it's just such a skill set that probably like, what is a knowledge skill set? What do you call it? Is it a skill set? Is it?
It's a skill set that I think is learnable. Some people have it by default, maybe due to their upbringing, whatever the case may be, or prior experience or training. But it is acquirable. I think it's the most important part. And so if I'm listing these things off, and you're like, oh, I'm good at my job, but like I talk too much, or I kind of like catastrophize sometimes, hope is not lost. These are just, now we're developing awareness.
Yeah.
And so once you can get underneath that, then you start to make a change.
Yeah. Yeah. I had a client working with her like about a year ago. So she was working also at the corporate store. She was a store manager and like overseeing certain, like processes there. But it was interesting. That's what she exactly had. So instead of communicating her, idea of how to make the process better for like employees as well, she just ran into the manager saying like, you promised me this during our interview, you said this is gonna be this, but and she like was screaming at his face.
Oh boy.
And like crying, and I'm like, yeah, so no wonder like nobody listens. Like it doesn't matter how good of, like, you might have the best intentions, like for your people, for people you're overseeing, but if that's how you negotiate it, or like, of course nobody wants to listen to you, because you just come across as like, I don't know, psycho person, So we were working on that, and she's like, honestly, she didn't even have an understanding or like awareness that this was the problem.
Right.
Yeah. She thought it's them, and they didn't listen to her, and they just wanted to kind of get rid of her. And that's it.
Yeah. And that is a risk, sometimes when you can feel the shift in the air.
Yeah.
And that your time is done. And it's tough because I've been in environments like this. I have clients in environments like this the environment is really intense. And so there is a justifiable, like, yeah, it's just tough there. And the negative space you have to look at is, what have I personally not done, or how have I not shown up? That's ultimately contributing to how it's impacted my performance, my internal brand, things like that. Because that's what gets indexed on, rather than because the environment's tough for everybody.
Yeah.
So like that's
Everywhere.
like,
I mean, everywhere. Your own business, whether you work
Sure.
for someone or whatever, it's everywhere. It's everywhere. It's tough. Yeah.
right. But then even within said company, so you're at some tech company, startup, like it's tough for all employees, right? So then if that's if that's an equalizer, how you stand out. Yeah. So then being aware of how you've shown up and how you're internalizing and justifying things that like, well, it's tough, therefore I don't have to do this, or I don't want to do that work. I don't enjoy it, or I need help, but I don't feel I can ask for help because that's not our culture.
Yeah.
That's probably one of the biggest ones. And so being able to pair it with a plan and then make your request.
Yeah.
It's like how you say you should eat a fat and a carb at the same time to like mitigate the glucose spike.
Yeah.
It's like, I want to ask for help. Well, then pair it with a vision
Yes.
rather than just asking for help. Pair it with like a plan and a vision.
So it would be like, I need help because of this.
I need help. It's not you need help. It's, hey guys, I have a really interesting vision future to elevate all of us. High performance coaching 101, raise ambition.
Yeah.
And so raise their ambition. Then it's like, great. In order to accomplish that, I'd like some resources.
Yeah. I love it. So they will feel also a part of something, like a great vision.
A part of it, but also that you aren't struggling in your job and you need help. It's that, hey, I have a plan. Here's a really cool thing we do. I just need resources. It's not that I need help and like I'm somehow deficient. It's the same mechanism, but it's branded.
Yeah, I see it. Okay, cool. What are the
Two more.
Yeah.
The next one being visibility, a willingness to be seen, and to invite yourself into the spaces to be seen. Like you put yourself in a position, and because you put the numbers together for a presentation or help write the software or whatever, but then there's some type of big product management roadmap, decision-making meeting, what that case may be. Did you ask to go if you weren't invited? Right. So that you can be a part of the process, see what happens on the basis of the work that you're doing, and also just be seen as a strategic leader. So that willingness to be visible is very important because all the other stuff can help, but it's not going to help as much if you're not doing it
Of course.
in prime time.
Yeah. You need to take credit for your work.
Correct. And be seen as being able to exist within those environments in the conference room with the CFO and the senior director of financial reporting and legal.
Yeah.
Right. And to be able to handle that kind of environment.
What is your top tip for that? Like, you know how people say, like, especially when you're on stage, but like public speaking, they say, just imagine that all people are naked in front of you. Do you have a hack like that?
Well, there might be an HR violation, but it's about imbuing yourself with the confidence because you've done your work and you know your numbers, and also knowing that you can say, I will absolutely get an answer for you. I'm going to go research and I'll come right back to you by tomorrow, by later today, whatever the case may be. Knowing that you have the ability, because remember, it's important to think of yourself as a mathematical formula. You don't need every single static number in your formula to calculate any single number that comes your way. You need just the right variables.
Yeah.
And so if you are, you leveraging your own intelligence, because most people are very smart, leveraging your work ethic and your vision, then those things can get you through most things, right? And you're going to get calibrated by, there'll be some bumps in the road, of course, but the biggest bump in the road is not experiencing any.
Yes, of course. Because then you have no experience, so like how to navigate it.
Right. And that's how you get 10, 15, 20 years into your career and you've never actually done something at the level that you know you could. And then now you're reporting to somebody who's younger than you.
That's probably how the guy was fired from Yahoo.
Yeah, maybe. Don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, well, he went the other way. He moved fast in his career to become CEO, but there's a lie.
Yeah, yeah. So like they figured that probably there's something missing, that missing link that maybe he wasn't performing. But anyway, sorry.
Yeah. But it's not that, just because you get to a certain place and maybe you are recording to somebody who's younger, it doesn't mean that's bad. It's only bad if you set intention to succeed and be further along. And again, success is not always linear, right? There are challenges, but it's like, are you showing up consistently in the way that is going to facilitate that? Because here's the thing, when it comes to negotiation, self-advocacy, is you may get the raise, you may get the promotion, or you may not, but you always get the truth about what they think about you. And so even if you are showing up in the way that, we're talking about here consistently and you're not getting the result, it may be the invitation of after having tried and to hit the promotion, get the raise or the job change internally, it's not happening. And maybe it's time to evaluate another company.
I love it. Okay. We have one more.
One more. And one of the most, they're all important, but this one's so important. It's manage up. So managing up is one of the most important skill sets, and coming all the way back, all these pillars, well, actually I'll say that in a second, but managing up is the most important pillar, I believe, because it's what allows you to really maneuver up in the organization and in your career while maintaining your health, well-being, and sanity. So managing up, think about it. If you're paddling on a river and there's a waterfall behind you and you want to get upstream, if you don't manage up, the current will push you over the falls. If you kind of manage up, you'll tread water. If you manage up consistently, it's your only shot at moving forward. And managing up looks like, I got all these, remember in my career, all these crazy requests. Like, we need this analysis done by tomorrow. And I would jump on those. I would never ask a qualifier question. I would be like, yes. Then they wouldn't use that analysis tomorrow. And they would sit on it for a week.
And you would think like,
and I killed myself and I stayed late, and then stuff like that keeps happening. And eventually that's one aspect of how the corporate beast will eat you alive. So then I started to, and it felt spicy for me because I wasn't accustomed to using my voice in this way. I was afraid to rock the boat. Even I was here in my career. So once I started doing that, I would say, I'm happy to do that for you. I have these other priorities. Is this truly going to be used tomorrow? Or can I wait till the next day or next week? Because a lot of times when people ask, they have their own agenda. They're not considered anything else. And it's nice to have something quick. Is it truly necessary? And then the real rock and roll experience is to do that with somebody who has a higher title, right? And so, if it's like a C-suite person, I typically didn't ask, or I can just do it because they're typically a bit more calibrated in their asks. But if it's like a cross-functional peer or like someone else's, direct manager, definitely would have that conversation. And then if even was my manager or something like a senior director or VP, it's like having to do that. Here's the other things we got going on. Is that important in the context of everything else or not? And it's just about that. That's that executive presence, just having that dialogue and be able to manage the conversation, because you can only manage the conversation if you're on equal footing, right? Even if your job titles are really out of whack, they can see you as a peer, and that's how you get promoted, and that's how you get trusted, and that's how you get thought of when that next cool idea, product release comes up. Like, we should have, Stephanie from that department. I think she could do that.
I love it. Okay. I love that. Also, you mentioned about the right timing, the right tone, I guess. What is the recipe there? So let's say you have a client and she's like, the hypothetical, right, scenario. She's like, okay, I've been working in this company and I feel like I want to have a raise or ask a raise. Walk me through, what are the most important things for them to look into, wait, or what is there? What is the recipe for success, I guess?
Yeah. It's one of my favorite topics. It's so the difference between asking for a raise when you're in a company and trying to move forward and don't want to leave versus interviewing is time. When you're interviewing, you're negotiating, it's quick. Inside a company, it's a campaign. So just know that it's probably going to take a while.
I love it.
It's a campaign. And a lot of people I've spoken to, they say, I'm going to wait, or they think that they should wait until their annual review to make the ask. And I say, no, your annual review should be the answer, not the question. So right now we're in April 2025. This is a great time to start performing Inception on your manager.
Okay. Okay. Take notes.
Because if your performance year of your company is on the calendar year, you just finished your annual reviews 1 to 2 months ago.
Yeah.
And like Salesforce, they're slid by a month. You're probably doing it right now. Point is, most people probably finished their annual review right now. And so you probably had mid-year review in summer coming up, as a touch point. And so now we're setting up for next year. The idea is that you want to be having regular dialogue with your manager. And I'll go into the specifics in a second, but throughout this year, so that your review in 2026 is the answer at the latest. Maybe you can ask for something soon.
Ahead of time.
We think it ahead of time, but also it's literally skate to where the puck is going. Budgets have to be configured into this year, in January 2026, for how much will be available for raises, promotions, and bonuses and equity grants when it comes time for performance reviews in February, March, April of 2026. So if you wait till then, it's like we've already handed out the gold Elks.
Yeah, that's sorry.
And you're like, I'm here to compete in next year.
Yeah,
So
it's a good point.
So having that awareness is really important. So that's just step one, but knowing where you are in time. Step two is to make sure you're working on the right things. And so that's where I know some people, they have crazy departments. They're like, I see my manager in these fleeting conversations, 4 minutes in the hallway, a quick Zoom where they dominate the agenda, right? And there's no space for me to say, by the way, I didn't think about my career and I had this vision. It is get steamroll.
Yeah.
And that's the introvert part and the not want to rock the boat part, where it's being able to insert yourself into the conversation. And sometimes it may mean either start with you at the top of an agenda of your weekly, bi-weekly, once a month, once every year, one-on-one with your manager, or scheduling a separate meeting and create a regular cadence. Because here's the risk. We all know you set your goals in corporate America and tech at the beginning of the year, or sometimes 9 months into the year. But you do that, I did my goal. I'm like, oh yeah, we didn't tell you, but just priorities kind of shifted. And so you ended up working on the wrong thing. Even though we didn't actually tell you, sorry, but now that you paid for that. And so the combination of waiting till you're reviewed to ask instead of doing it before, not working on the right things, that's how your manager goes oh, I didn't realize you had that intention. Let's put a plan together for you for 2027.
Yeah. Let's make sure that next year you're actually going to be on point. Yeah.
Right. And so doing that now, that's the inception that you do, is getting the infrastructure time with your manager to have a conversation. Because this is why it's a campaign. You're going to state your desire. I would love the opportunity to get promoted. I would really in review time when it comes around to get a top of market increase and bonus and equity grant. And you must see how they react to that. They're never going to say yes.
Of course.
Or even though you've been doing really great, but I can't guarantee it. Of course. But the thing is, you need to get to their mind, this is the inception, so that when they're allocating budgets, that they're I did have that conversation. Because all of this is about reducing plausible deniability. Your manager should not have an easy out of oh, I didn't know you wanted that. Let's talk about it for next year.
Yes.
It should be, that's why it's the answer. So that they should ultimately, if this is done comprehensively, they'd be hey, I know we talked about this. I just can't do it. And that's how everything boils down to. You'll get the truth of how they view you.
Yeah.
Because you need to clear away all the clutter of well, I didn't know, or you didn't really work on the right thing, but let's put a plan together. You need to move all that. And that's where you got to bring up front.
So you secured everything. I love it. It's really like a big system.
It is.
That you developed. That's so cool. Who is your ideal client? Who should reach out to you, or who you want, or who you can serve, I guess?
I believe I can serve most, but who I have found has gravitated to me the most are women who are probably manager to VP plus in Fortune 1000 tech startups and small business.
Okay. And what is walk me through the process? They find you, right? What's next? So our audience can also know that.
Sure. So when I work with somebody, we start out with a call. I call it a strategy session, just to make sure that what you're working on is something that I could be of service to, but also to get to know you. And what is your ambition? What do you think your roadblocks are? And, I can get excited about how we can work together in helping you accomplish those goals. Then typically people sign up for an engagement of 3 or 6 months. And that's time for us to have weekly or bi-weekly sessions. And that's the infrastructure. That's the what or the how, but the what of what they get is transformation with their somatic body, to use their voice to advocate for themselves when their self-worth is on the line.
Yeah. Because it's definitely a lot of inner work right there. Yeah. You've been You can have all the tools and like how to, but then like the insight, what matters.
100%, because a lot of this conversation has been about the tactics and the how, the surface.
Yeah.
Like, what do you say up top? A lot of the women that I work with, the first 50% that we have to work on is their relationship with using their voice.
Yeah.
And that's okay. But it's important to do, because ultimately the work that we do, a lot of women come and be like, I wanted to ask her a raise, or I'm negotiating, I'm interviewing somewhere. And they're coming to you for this point in time thing, but ultimately they learn a skill that will carry through their entire life for the rest of their life.
Wow. And I feel like it's also going to be very helpful in all other areas in your life.
Sure.
Relationship, like navigating conflicts.
Oh, yeah. You know, I joke that a salary negotiation is, it's almost like dating, because you have to use your voice and advocate for yourself in the dynamic of when you want something.
Yeah.
Because that's actually the highest form of self-advocacy, is can you ask for what you want when you still want what they have? Like in dating, it's easier to break up with somebody if they're a horrible person.
Yeah.
But if they're like, gosh, you're really great, you're not treating me the way I would like to be.
Oh, I love it. Yeah.
Right. And so this confidence really
down to like something for less than.
You're correct. It's like, God, this company is really cool. They're just not offering me what I want.
Yeah.
But it would be such a great move on my resume in my career. I mean, I should just take the job, just get the experience and not ask for more. This is how so many people, everyone negotiates. For a lot of the women that say, like, I don't know how to negotiate, like, you definitely negotiate. You're just negotiating with the wrong person. Yeah, it's yourself. Don't negotiate with yourself. You turn that outward and start managing the conversation externally. Beautiful.
All right. Thank you so much. I had a lot of insights. And where people can find you? What is specific?
Resparkcoaching.com. And if you go to resparkcoaching.com/wise, WISE, it's my Facebook group for women that are in their career.
We'll link it below.
And WISE stands for Women in Success and Empowerment.
Ooh, love it. Okay. How many people do you have?
I'm just starting it.
Okay. Oh, let's go. Okay. I hope we're going to bring you more people because I love what you do. Also, I have signature questions.
Sure.
Okay. So what would you say to the woman who knows she meant for more, but is scared to bet on herself? Like if that's just one phrase or one sentence.
Sure. Start by betting on yourself small to get accustomed to betting on yourself.
Love it. So small steps, small wins.
Small wins. And like pick something, like if usually the big bet is like asking for the raise or the promotion or the change in your relationship, it's finding something small, like maybe there's a coworker who always puts calendar invites without asking, and you've something like that. And it's like, so maybe starting small and like, listen, Bob, Tom, Jan, my calendar is up to date. I would really appreciate if you did schedule over things I already have booked.
I love it.
Unless it's really important and we have a conversation about it.
Ooh, I love it. Yeah, awesome. I feel like it's not rude, right? It's just stating like your truth.
Well, you said something really important. It's not rude to advocate for yourself. And it's also not bragging about your accomplishments if it's true.
Yeah. I feel like also the tone of voice would be very important, right? Because that will also be like, you can say it in so many different ways. Okay. Second question. If you have to describe your transformation in 3 words, like your transformation in your life with career and start coaching, what would that be?
Get a coach.
Love it. Yes. Yeah. And finally, what's one truth you live by now that you didn't before?
That I can do it. I am capable of doing what I dream, because I used to only think I can only be successful in corporate America, W-2 life. I was really beholden to that. And the thought of stepping out was very scary.
Yeah.
Now the thought of going back is very scary.
Yeah, that's probably, that's more scary. So I'll stay here. All right, I love it. Also, I have a tradition here. So it's a little bit of spirituality. We're going to bring it to you. I have this angel numbers oracle. I want you to think of a tension or a question that might be very important for you in this moment of your life. And I'm going to give you the card, like a deck. I'm going to pull the card.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll see what it says. So far, it's been on point. A little bit of feminine energy here. So good. Okay. There we go.
Just
You can just take it and like aspect it.
oh, okay.
Yeah, bold it.
When do I take a card?
I'm gonna take it. I'm gonna give it to you. You're gonna pick a card. All right. I have a person asking about his wife in my DMs because I do this. I do this game with my followers. I'm like, all right. I pull a card. Just say. Oh.
555.
555. Let's go. 555 in numerology means like new beginning, new horizons, new adventures, new things.
I love it.
Yeah, and it's also about educating. Okay, I'm gonna read it to you. Changes are soaring your way. The universe is going to be sweeping you up in forward momentum, so don't fight it. Lean in. Be a driven force in your own growth and transformation. Think of this as call for action on your part. Keep an open mind and allow yourself to explore any new opportunities or possibilities that may cross your path. Embrace perseverance and spontaneity. While this is a future-minded number, it's still important to make your choices from a place of peace and stability. Be brave. So because it's upright, transformations, shifts in how you experience the world, trust in your ability to weather change, embracing possibilities and opportunities, taking care of yourself even in hectic times, and affirmation, I trust, believe, and I'm ready to receive.
I love that.
Does it fit?
Yeah, I got some travel coming up, considering some new angles on business and
Love it.
yeah.
I love it. Okay, here we go.
I like it.
We'll check in with you a little bit later. All right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
Thank you. Bye, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much.
If Aaron's insight hit home today, take it as a sign. Advocating for yourself is not selfish or rude. It's self-honoring. And every time you ask for more, you're not just changing your life. You're expanding what's possible for every woman who comes after you. If you want support stepping into that next level, check the description for links to Aaron's work. And if you know someone who's on the edge of owning her voice, send this to her. Thank you so much. Julia Dars. Until the next time.